say, somebody out there is wanting to improve or lengthen the amount of time spent in slow wave sleep. Slow wave sleep, we know, and I'm sure you can speak to this very well about, it's when the glymphatic system.
Yeah, it pulls all that other crap out of there. We want that. We're dying for it's like the waste management of the brain finally comes in and pulls all that crap out, right?
Amazing.
Yeah. So how do we improve that, right? And that whole kind of idea. So easiest way to improve slow wave sleep is exercise. The most positive way is daily cardiovascular exercise. So one of the things that's been going on during this whole quarantine insanity is people aren't moving. I had a celebrity the other day, they texted and they were like, I've had 200 steps and it's 2 o'clock. I'm like, oh my God, like you'd be at like 8,000 by 2 o'clock, on a normal day. So like people aren't moving. And so that remember, sleep is all about recovery. And so the reason we need recovery is because we have moved. So you need to move in order to sleep better. So you need to get that back into your whole, regimen. And that's one of the easiest ways to improve sleep quality. The other is the elimination of caffeine and alcohol, right? I mean, not a big surprise there. To be fair, I like both of them. So managing those and mitigating that risk in a unique way can actually be very effective, right? So none of my clients turn to me and say, oh, I never want to have alcohol again, or I never want to have caffeine again. So what we've come up with is a set of rules, which I'm happy to share. So the first one we know is that based on your circadian rhythm, and this is going to differ based on whatever your chronotype is, 90 minutes after you're supposed to wake up based on your chronotype, that's when you should have your caffeine. The reasoning is because cortisol and adrenaline have boosted you up to wake you up in the morning. And so when you have those two things functioning in your brain, adding caffeine does almost no good, because it's cortisol and adrenaline are like cocaine compared to, like caffeine, which is like weak tea, right? In terms of just how powerful they are towards the brain. You got to let that simmer down before you add the caffeine on it. Otherwise, it's just not going to do you a whole lot of good.
Is there any harm that can come from like pouring caffeine into that milieu?
So not any harm per se, but what ends up happening is people are like, well, nothing worked.
Wow.
And so then they add another shot, and then they add, and then they're getting their 4-shot espresso or their 6-shot or whatever. If they literally just waited, then they'd get all the boost that they're looking for. And then what ends up happening sometimes is if they exacerbate the caffeine, is they get all the, the bad side effects. So they get the jitters or things like that.
I feel like, so you're saying wait 90 minutes after you wake up?
90 minutes after you open your eyes. If you're waking up on your chronotypical wake up time,
got it.
That's when it works. That's the magic number. And then caffeine has a half-life of between 6 and 8 hours. So most people don't think about it that way, but it does. And so my guesstimate is around 2 o'clock in the afternoon is a good cutoff time, right? Because then most people, at least here in North America, go to bed somewhere around 10, 11. So 8 hours later, half of it's out of your system. It shouldn't prevent you from sleeping. Now, I guarantee you there's people who are listening and they're going to be like, sleep doctor, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I can have a cup of coffee, a dinner, or espresso, cappuccino, and I can go right to bed. So let's be clear, there are different caffeine sensitivities. That's something that we learned probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, is different people react differently to caffeine. But I'm going to tell you something. I dare you to do this, because here's what's going to happen is you might be able to fall asleep, but the quality of the sleep you're getting is going to be pure crap, right? If I stuck electrodes on your head right after you had a cup of coffee and had you go to sleep, caffeine's a stimulant. It doesn't matter how you slice it. That's how it acts in the brain. So the closer to bedtime that you drink caffeine, the worse your slow wave sleep is, right? Because you're moving too fast to be slow, right? Is the easiest way to think about it. Caffeine's a stimulant. Slow wave sleep, it's called slow wave for a reason. The waves are slow.
So like drinking caffeine too late in the day could actually, you're saying theoretically, impair how well your brain is able to clean itself of these plaques that accumulate.
Oh, I don't think there's any theoretical about it. I would say absolutely that's true.
Wow.
I would say that's the case.
Wow. Yeah, that's frightening.
Depending upon the amount of caffeine, of course, and your tolerance level and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And I mean, your internal microbiome is obviously going to have something to do with it. But I think there's absolutely, I don't think there's any question about whether or not there's an influence. I think the question would be if it's the sole influence or not.
Yeah.
I would argue probably not.
Wow, super interesting.